The champagne flute trembled in my hand, condensation slipping between my fingers, like the life I thought I'd built with Marcus. 3 years. 3 years of anniversary dinners at Le Bernardin, where the sommelier knew his preferred Bordeaux, and the maitre d' saved us the corner table overlooking the city lights. 3 years of pretending I didn't notice the lipstick stains on his collar. The late nights that smelled of perfume that wasn't mine. The way his phone screen went dark whenever I walked into a room. I set the glass down on our marble kitchen counter, the one Marcus insisted we install during the renovation, the one that cost more than my mother made in 6 months, working double shifts at the textile factory. The bubbles rose and popped, celebrating nothing. He was 2 hours late. Again. The pregnancy test burned like a coal in my coat pocket. 2 pink lines. 48 hours of staring at them, wondering how to tell a man who could barely look at me that we'd created something together. Something that would bind us forever. Whether he wanted it or not. My phone buzzed. Not Marcus. Never Marcus. Working late. Don't wait up. M. The city stretched below our penthouse windows, a glittering sprawl of lives more important than mine. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass, watching my breath fog the view. 26 years old, and I'd somehow become invisible in my own marriage. The girl from Brooklyn, who waitressed her way through community college, who thought landing a junior analyst at Marcus's father's firm meant she'd finally made it. What a joke. I grabbed my coat, the wool one with the ripped lining I kept meaning to fix, and stuffed my wallet into my purse. The pregnancy test crinkled in my pocket. I couldn't stay here, couldn't breathe in this pristine apartment that felt more like a showroom than a home. The walls were closing in, suffocating me with their designer paint and curated artwork. The November air bit through my coat the moment I stepped outside. Our building, Marcus's building really, paid for by family money I'd never touch, sat in Tribeca, where even the sidewalks seemed polished. I walked without direction, my sneakers scuffing against concrete still damp from afternoon rain. The streets blurred together, upscale restaurants bleeding into boutique shops, all of them closed or closing. I ended up in a neighborhood I didn't recognize. The buildings here were older, the storefronts darker, a jazz club pulsed with muffled music, a bodega's neon sign flickered open 24 HRS, and tucked between them, almost hidden, a restaurant with fogged windows, and a single word etched in gold on the door. Valentino's. My stomach growled. I'd skipped lunch, too nauseous from the pregnancy to eat, too anxious about tonight to try. Through the steamed glass, I could see warm light, white tablecloths, the shape of people enjoying their lives. The door was heavier than it looked. Inside, the air wrapped around me. Garlic, rosemary, something rich simmering in wine. My mouth watered despite the nausea. A hostess materialized, her dress black and elegant, her smile professional but not unkind. "Do you have a reservation?" "No, My voice cracked. "I just needed somewhere warm." Her expression softened. "The bar has a few seats. Carlo makes the best carbonara in Manhattan." She led me through the dining room. Real candles flickered on tables where couples leaned close, where groups laughed over wine bottles, where life happened in warm, golden abundance. The bar stretched along the back wall, dark wood gleaming under low pendant lights. She gestured to a corner stool, somewhat hidden from the main room. "Thank you," I whispered. The bartender, Carlo, I assumed, was older, with silver threading through his dark hair and eyes that had seen too much to be surprised by a woman dining alone. He slid a menu across the bar without comment, then returned to polishing glasses with methodical care. I ordered the carbonara and a sparkling water, ignoring how my fingers shook when I handed back the menu. The test in my pocket seemed to pulse with heat. 2 pink lines. A baby. Marcus's baby. The thought made my throat close. Around me, the restaurant hummed with life. A couple at a nearby table argued in Italian, their hands gesturing wildly. A server rushed past carrying a tray loaded with steaming plates. Someone laughed, loud and uninhibited. I was surrounded by people, yet I'd never felt more alone. The carbonara arrived in a wide bowl, steam rising, the egg and cheese glistening. I picked up my fork, and that's when I felt it. A shift in the air, like the barometric pressure dropping before a storm. The conversations didn't stop exactly, but they muted, softened. As if someone had turned down the volume on the entire room, I looked up. 3 men had entered through a back door I hadn't noticed. The first 2 wore dark suits that fit too well to be off the rack, their eyes scanning the room with professional assessment. But it was the 3rd man who made my breath catch. He moved like violence contained in an expensive suit. Tall, broad-shouldered, maybe early 30s. His suit was charcoal gray, tailored so perfectly it seemed molded to his frame. Dark hair swept back from a face that belonged in Renaissance paintings. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, lips that looked cruel even in repose. But it was his eyes that stopped my heart. Dark, almost black, and cold as winter sea ice. He didn't walk through the restaurant. The restaurant parted for him. Carlos straightened behind the bar, his usual calm replaced by something that looked like reverence. Or fear. The hostess appeared from nowhere, murmuring something in rapid Italian. The man, because even thinking of him as a man felt inadequate, nodded once. A gesture so small it barely qualified as movement. His gaze swept the room, cataloging, assessing. I dropped my eyes to my carbonara, suddenly aware of how out of place I looked in my worn coat and 3-year-old jeans. These were not people in my league. This was not a restaurant for women who cried alone at their kitchen counters. I twisted pasta around my fork, trying to become smaller, invisible. A skill I'd perfected in Marcus's world of country club lunches and charity galas, where his mother introduced me as Marcus's wife, with a smile that never reached her eyes. Ms. Russo. The voice was dark velvet over gravel. It came from directly beside me. I turned my head slowly, and there he was, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Cedar and something darker, dangerous. Something that made my pulse spike in a way that had nothing to do with fear, and everything to do with the pregnancy hormones flooding my system. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at my coat, draped over the stool beside me. At the small white stick that had fallen from my pocket, lying on the dark wood like an accusation. The pregnancy test. His eyes, God, those eyes, moved from the test to my face with the slow deliberation of a predator deciding whether to pounce. Something flickered in their depths, gone too fast to name. I believe you dropped something. His accent was subtle, European maybe, smoothed by years in America but still there in the vowels. My hand shot out, grabbing the test and shoving it back into my pocket. My face burned hot enough to light the entire restaurant. I'm sorry. I didn't mean... You're sitting in my seat. The words were soft, almost gentle, but they landed like a physical blow. I looked around wildly. The bar had emptied without me noticing. Patrons migrating to tables, the stools on either side of me suddenly vacant. Only I remained, an island of ignorance in a sea of people who clearly knew better. I didn't know. I'm so sorry. I fumbled for my purse, nearly knocking over my water glass. I'll move, I'll just... sit. One word. A command dressed as a suggestion. Finish your dinner. He settled onto the stool beside me. Not the one my coat had occupied, but the one on my other side. Close. Too close. I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Could see the way his jacket pulled across his shoulders when he shifted. One of his men took position by the back door, the other near the front. Not sitting. Just... watching. Carlo appeared instantly, setting down a glass of amber liquid without being asked. The man, because I still didn't have a name for him, only the certainty that he was dangerous, picked it up, took a slow sip, and finally turned to look at me fully. You're crying. I touched my face, surprised to find wetness on my cheeks. When had that started? I'm fine. You're celebrating alone in a restaurant you clearly didn't intend to find, holding a positive pregnancy test and crying into pasta. His lips curved, not quite a smile. This is not fine. The observation was so accurate, so brutally honest that I almost laughed. Instead, more tears came, hot and humiliating. It's my anniversary. Congratulations. He's not here. The words spilled out before I could stop them. He's never here. He's... I cut myself off, horrified. Why was I telling this to a stranger? A stranger who looked like he could snap necks without creasing his suit. He's a fool. The man said it with absolute certainty, as if it were a medical diagnosis rather than an opinion. I should have left then. Should have thrown money on the bar and run back to my empty penthouse, my absent husband, my carefully constructed life. Instead, I took a shaky breath and met those dark eyes. I don't even know your name. Something shifted in his expression, not a smile, but close. Dante. Dante, I repeated. It fit him, classical, dangerous. Don't. He raised his glass in a gesture that might have been a toast or a warning. Names have power, Piccola. Once I know yours, you become real. And real things. He paused, studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Real things are harder to walk away from. I should have asked what he meant. Should have pressed for clarity. Instead, I picked up my fork and took another bite of carbonara, my hands steadier now, despite the tears still wet on my face. We sat in silence, me eating, him drinking, his men standing sentinel, while the restaurant continued its muted rhythm around us. When I'd scraped the bowl clean, Dante gestured to Carlo, another. And bread, she's too thin. I'm fine, I protested. You're eating for two. His eyes dropped to my pocket, where the test had disappeared, and crying alone on your anniversary. We've established that fine is not a word that applies to you tonight. Carlo brought more food without comment. Bruschetta, fresh bread with olive oil, a small plate of roasted vegetables. I stared at the abundance, my throat tight. I can't pay for all this. You think I would let you? Dante's voice dropped lower, dangerous. In my restaurant, women who cry eat for free. It's a rule. Your restaurant? I looked around with new eyes, the deference, the cleared seat, the way everyone moved around him like water around a stone. My restaurant, he confirmed. Among other things, the implications hung heavy in the air. I should have been afraid, should have recognized the signs, the guards, the automatic obedience, the cold authority in every word. Instead, I felt something else, something warm and reckless blooming in my chest. Thank you, I whispered, for the food, for not asking questions. Everyone has questions, Piccola. I simply choose not to waste time on ones that don't matter. He finished his drink, set down the glass with precise care. The only question that matters is what you're going to do now. Now? You have information he doesn't have. Dante's gaze fixed on my pocket again. Information that changes everything. So what will you do? Go home to your empty apartment and your absent husband? Wait for him to notice you're alive? The words cut clean through every excuse I'd been making for 3 years. What else can I do? You can vanish. The suggestion was so unexpected, so impossible, that I laughed, actually laughed. The sound brittle and sharp. Vanish? I have a job, an apartment, a husband. A job that underpays you, an apartment in his name, a husband who isn't there. Each point landed like a blade. What exactly are you holding on to, Piccola? I opened my mouth to argue, but nothing came. Because he was right. God help me. This terrifying stranger was absolutely right. Dante stood, buttoning his jacket with precise movements. His men straightened, ready. He pulled a card from his pocket, heavy stock, embossed with just a phone number, and placed it on the bar beside my plate. When you're ready to stop being invisible, he said quietly. Call that number. I'll make sure you're seen. Then he was moving toward the back door, his men falling into formation, and I was alone again at the bar with a half-eaten meal and a business card that felt like a grenade in my hands. I sat there long after they'd gone, until Carlo gently suggested I might be more comfortable at a table, until the dinner rush faded and the restaurant settled into late-night quiet. The card stayed on the bar, catching the light, impossible to ignore. Outside, rain had started again, turning the streets slick and dangerous. I tucked the card into my pocket beside the pregnancy test. 2 impossible things, both capable of destroying my carefully constructed life. My phone buzzed. Marcus, finally, staying at the office. Don't wait up. M. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it, pulled out Dante's card, and walked out into the rain without looking back. The rain soaked through my coat before I'd walked 3 blocks. Cold water dripped from my hair, down my neck, into the collar of my shirt. I should have hailed a cab, should have gone home to the penthouse with its heated floors and pristine towels. Instead, I walked. The card in my pocket felt like it was burning through the fabric. A phone number. Nothing else. No name, no address. Just 10 digits that somehow felt more intimate than anything Marcus had given me in months. I found myself in front of a 24-hour diner, the kind with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like burnt rubber. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I slid into a corner booth, as far from the windows as possible. A waitress with tired eyes and a stained apron brought me coffee without asking. "Rough night, honey?" You could say that. I wrapped my hands around the mug, letting the heat seep into my frozen fingers. She patted my shoulder, a brief maternal gesture, and left me alone with my thoughts, which was dangerous, because my thoughts kept circling back to Dante, to the way he'd looked at me like he could see straight through the carefully constructed facade I showed the world, to the certainty in his voice when he'd called Marcus a fool. You can vanish. The idea was insane. Women didn't just vanish from their lives because a terrifying stranger in an expensive suit suggested it. Women with jobs and apartments and husbands, even absent ones, didn't throw everything away on a whim, but I wasn't just a woman anymore. I was carrying a child, Marcus's child, a child who deserved better than a father who couldn't be bothered to show up for his own anniversary. My phone sat on the table between my coffee mug and the sugar dispenser. 11 missed calls now, all from Vivian, Marcus's mother. None from Marcus himself. I picked it up, thumb hovering over Vivian's name. Then I set it back down and pulled out Dante's card instead. The number seemed to pulse in the diner's harsh light. I could almost hear his voice. "When you're ready to stop being invisible." Like a dare wrapped in concern. What would happen if I called? What did "make sure you're seen" even mean? My other hand drifted to my stomach, still flat, still showing no evidence of the life growing inside. 2 pink lines. That's all it took to change everything. 2 pink lines, and a stranger's dark eyes seeing me. Really seeing me. For the first time in years. I left the diner as dawn broke over the city, the rain finally stopping. The streets were quiet, that strange in-between time when night workers headed home and early risers hadn't yet emerged. My phone buzzed again. Vivian. I declined the call. The penthouse felt different when I finally returned. Colder. Emptier. Marcus's absence was no longer just an inconvenience, it was a statement. He'd chosen not to be here. Again, on our anniversary, knowing I'd be waiting. I stripped off my wet clothes, leaving them in a pile on the bathroom floor. The pregnancy test sat on the counter where I'd left it that morning, those 2 pink lines still screaming their truth. I picked it up, studying it in the mirror's reflection. A baby. Our baby. Except there was no "our" anymore, was there? There was Marcus, living his separate life in his separate world. And there was me, invisible and forgotten. I pulled on dry clothes, leggings, an oversized sweater, thick socks, and made myself tea. Chamomile, because the pregnancy book said it was safe. I'd bought them secretly, hiding them under the bed where Marcus wouldn't find them. Where Marcus wouldn't bother to look even if they were sitting on the kitchen table. The morning stretched ahead, empty. It was Saturday. Marcus rarely came home on Saturdays anymore. "Work," he'd say, "important clients." As if I didn't know the truth, as if I couldn't smell the perfume, couldn't see the hotel charges on credit card statements he thought I didn't check. I sat on the couch with my tea and Dante's card, watching the city wake up through floor-to-ceiling windows. People rushed along sidewalks below, purposeful and alive. I used to be one of them, before Marcus, before I'd traded my studio apartment in Brooklyn and my waitressing shifts for this gilded cage. You can vanish. My phone rang. Vivian again. This time, I answered. "Emilia, thank God." Her voice was sharp, cultivated, everything I wasn't. "Where is Marcus? He's not answering his phone." "I don't know, Vivian. He didn't come home last night." A pause, then carefully. He told me you two had dinner plans. We did. He never showed up. Another pause, longer this time. I could practically hear her calculating, deciding how to spin this into somehow being my fault. Well, I'm sure he had a good reason. The merger has been very stressful. It's our anniversary. The words came out flat, emotionless. Yes, well, marriage is about understanding, Amelia, about supporting your husband's career. Perhaps if you made more of an effort too. I hung up. My hands shook as I set the phone down. 3 years of her subtle criticisms, her carefully worded suggestions that I wasn't quite good enough for her son. 3 years of swallowing my pride, my anger, my self-respect. The card felt like a lifeline or a noose. I couldn't decide which. I picked up my phone again, this time opening a new contact. My thumb hovered over the keypad. Just 10 digits. That's all it would take. When you're ready to stop being invisible. I was so tired of being invisible. I typed in the number before I could overthink it. But I didn't hit call. Not yet. Instead, I sat there, staring at it, wondering what kind of woman I was becoming. The kind who called strange men, the kind who ran away from her problems instead of facing them, or the kind who finally chose herself. The door opened. I jumped, nearly dropping my phone. Marcus walked in, still wearing his suit from yesterday, looking exhausted and rumpled. He didn't see me on the couch. He never saw me anymore. Marcus, he startled, turning. You're awake. It's 10 in the morning. Right. Yeah, he ran a hand through his hair, not meeting my eyes. Listen, about last night, where were you? The office, I told you. Don't lie to me! The words came out stronger than I felt. Not today. Not anymore. Something flickered across his face. Guilt. Annoyance. It was gone too fast to tell. I had a late meeting. It ran long. I crashed on the office couch. On our anniversary. It's just a date, Em. It doesn't mean... He stopped, seeming to realize how that sounded. Look, I'm sorry. I should have called. I should have been here. But this merger is important. And... I'm pregnant. The words hung between us like a bomb. Marcus's face went blank, all the color draining away. He took a step back, as if I'd struck him. What? I'm pregnant. I stood up, holding my ground even though my legs felt weak. 8 weeks. I found out 2 days ago. He stared at me. Through me. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then, are you sure? I took 3 tests. Yes, I'm sure. Jesus. He turned away, hands on his hips. Jesus Christ, breathing hard. We can't. He spun back. You need to take care of it. The room tilted. Take care of it? We're not ready for a baby. My career is just taking off, and you... He gestured vaguely at me. This isn't the right time. The right time? I repeated the words slowly, tasting their poison. When would be the right time, Marcus? When you actually come home? When you stop sleeping with your assistant? His face hardened. I don't know what you think you know. Her name is Jessica. She wears Chanel No. 5. You've been fucking her for 6 months. The words felt good. Powerful. Did you think I was stupid? Did you think I wouldn't notice? This isn't about her. No, it's about you. About the fact that you can't be bothered to show up for your own wife, but you expect me to just, what? Erase our baby because it's inconvenient? Don't be dramatic. His voice went cold, the tone he used in business meetings. We both know this marriage isn't working. A baby won't fix that. It'll only make things worse. The truth of it hit harder than his words. He was right. Our marriage was a corpse we'd been pretending was still breathing, but hearing him say it, seeing the disgust in his eyes when he looked at me, that was something else entirely. Get out. Marcus blinked. What? Get out. Go to Jessica's. Go to the office. I don't care. Just get out of my sight. This is my apartment. Then I'll leave. I grabbed my phone, my purse, the coat that was still damp from last night. File the divorce papers. I won't fight you. Wait. He reached for me, but I jerked away. Let's talk about this. Let's be rational. Rational? I laughed, high and sharp. You want rational? Fine. Rationally, our marriage is over. Rationally, you're a cheating bastard who can't even pretend to love me anymore. Rationally, I'm worth more than this. I walked past him, heading for the door. He caught my arm. Where are you going? I looked at his hand on my arm, then at his face. I'm vanishing. His grip tightened. Don't be stupid. You have nowhere to go. Let go of me, Marcus. Not until you calm down and we discuss this like adults. The slap happened before I'd consciously decided to do it. My palm connected with his cheek, the sound sharp in the quiet apartment. Marcus released me immediately, his hand flying to his face, shock written across his features. Don't ever touch me again. I walked out. Down the hallway, past the doorman who carefully avoided looking at me, out into the November morning that smelled like rain and new beginnings. My heart hammered against my ribs, adrenaline making my hands shake. I pulled out my phone, found the number I'd entered earlier, and this time, I didn't hesitate. The phone rang once, twice. On the third ring, a voice answered. Not Dante. Someone else. Younger, with a thick accent. Yes? My voice cracked. I need to speak to Dante. Who is this? He gave me this number, last night, at Valentino's. He said... I took a breath. He said to call when I was ready to stop being invisible. A pause. Then, wait, the line went quiet, but not dead. I could hear voices in the background, speaking rapid Italian. Footsteps, a door closing. Then, piccola. His voice sent a shiver down my spine. Dante. He sounded unsurprised, as if he'd been expecting my call. I need help. Words came out small, broken. Where are you? Outside my building. I left. I told him about the baby and he... My throat closed. He wants me to get rid of it. Silence. When Dante spoke again, his voice was soft, deadly. Give me the address. I rattled it off, my brain on autopilot. Don't move. Someone will be there in 5 minutes, do you understand? Don't go back inside. Don't speak to anyone. Just wait. Okay. Emilia. The sound of my name on his lips made my breath catch. He knew. Somehow he'd found out. You did the right thing. The line went dead. I stood on the sidewalk, clutching my phone, watching expensive cars pass by. 5 minutes felt like an eternity. I half expected Marcus to come down, to drag me back upstairs, to tell me I was being hysterical. But Marcus didn't come. Instead, a black SUV pulled up to the curb, its windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. The back door opened. A man emerged. One of Dante's guards from last night, his face impassive. Ms. Russo, please. He gestured to the car. I should have been afraid. Should have questioned what I was doing. Getting into a vehicle with armed men who worked for someone I'd met exactly once. Instead, I climbed in. The interior was leather and luxury, warm and safe. The guard closed the door gently, then got into the front passenger seat. The driver, another man in a dark suit, pulled smoothly into traffic. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them asked questions. They simply drove, navigating through Manhattan with practiced ease, heading away from Tribeca, away from my life. I leaned my head back against the seat, closing my eyes. My phone buzzed. Marcus. Then Vivian. Then Marcus again. I turned it off. Where are we going? I finally asked. The guard in the passenger seat glanced back. Somewhere safe, Miss Russo. The boss will meet you there. The boss. Dante. I was really doing this, running away with the help of a man I didn't know, leaving behind everything I'd built, everything I'd tried to become. But as the city blurred past the windows, I didn't feel fear. I felt something else. I felt free. The SUV drove for 40 minutes, leaving Manhattan behind. I watched through tinted windows as the city gave way to quieter streets, then to tree-lined neighborhoods I'd never seen before. We crossed a bridge, I couldn't tell which one, and entered an area where houses sat back from the road, hidden behind gates and old-growth trees. Finally, we turned onto a private drive. Iron gates swung open automatically, closing behind us with a decisive clang that made my pulse spike. The driveway curved through manicured grounds, past gardens that probably looked beautiful in summer, but now stood dormant under gray November skies. The house, No, the estate, materialized like something from a movie. Stone and glass, modern lines softened by ivy and age. Not ostentatious, but undeniably expensive. The kind of place that whispered old money and older secrets. The SUV stopped in front of massive wooden doors. The guard opened my door, offering his hand. I took it, stepping out onto gravel that crunched beneath my sneakers. The air here smelled different, cleaner. Like pine and earth instead of exhaust and sidewalk steam. "This way, Ms. Russo." The doors opened before we reached them. A woman stood in the entrance, late 50s, steel gray hair pulled into a neat bun, wearing simple black slacks and a cream sweater. Her face was kind but assessing, taking in my rumpled clothes and wild hair with a single glance. "I'm Lucia," she said, her accent thicker than Dante's. "Welcome. Please, come inside." The interior took my breath away. High ceilings, warm wood floors, furniture that managed to be both elegant and comfortable. Artwork on the walls, real artwork, not the pretentious pieces Marcus's decorator had chosen. Windows everywhere, letting in gray morning light. "You must be cold," Lucia continued, already moving deeper into the house, "and hungry. When did you last eat?" I tried to remember. "The carbonara last night. Nothing since." "Last night." She made a disapproving sound. "Come." The kitchen. I followed her through rooms that seemed to go on forever, each one more beautiful than the last. The kitchen was enormous, all marble counters and professional appliances, but somehow still felt warm. Lived in. A pot of something simmered on the stove, filling the air with the scent of tomatoes and herbs. "Sit." Lucia pointed to a stool at the island. "I'll make you tea. Something gentle for the baby." I froze. "How did you—" "Dante told me." She bustled around the kitchen with practiced efficiency. "He says you need a safe place. So here you are, safe." "I don't understand." I sank onto the stool, my legs suddenly weak. Why is he helping me? He doesn't even know me. Lucia's hands paused in their work. She turned to face me, her dark eyes, so much like Dante's, studying my face. "My nephew has always had a weakness for those who need protection, especially women. Especially—" She trailed off, something sad flickering across her features. "You remind him of someone. Who?" "That's his story to tell." She set a cup of tea in front of me, something herbal that smelled like chamomile and mint. "For now, you rest. You're safe here. No one can reach you." The tea was perfect, soothing the nausea that had been building since I'd confronted Marcus. I wrapped my hands around the cup, letting the warmth seep into my bones. "Ms. Russo." The guard from the SUV appeared in the doorway. "Your phone has been ringing, multiple calls from the same numbers." He held out my phone, which I'd left in the car. The screen showed 23 missed calls. Marcus, Vivian, Marcus's father, even Jessica, his assistant turned mistress. "They're looking for me," I whispered. "They won't find you," Lucia said firmly. "Not unless you want them to." I stared at the phone, at all those missed calls representing people who hadn't cared about me until I disappeared. I should call them back, tell them I'm okay. "Are you?" Lucia's question was gentle but pointed. "Okay?" Was I? I'd walked out on my husband, accepted help from a stranger who was clearly dangerous, and was now sitting in a mansion I couldn't have afforded to breathe in. I was pregnant, alone, and had no idea what came next. "No," I admitted. "I'm not okay." "Then rest first, decisions later." She ladled soup into a bowl, the same rich tomato scent from the stove. "Eat. Then Dante will explain everything." "Where is he?" "Handling business." Her tone suggested I shouldn't ask what kind. "He'll be home this afternoon." Home. As if this palace were just a house. As if men like Dante, men with guards and restaurant empires and the kind of power that made people step aside, had normal homes. I ate the soup because Lucia watched me like a hawk, because my baby needed food even if I didn't feel hungry, because it gave me something to do besides spiral into panic. It was delicious, rich and complex, tasting of slow-simmered hours and generational recipes. When I'd finished, Lucia led me upstairs. The bedroom she showed me was larger than my entire Brooklyn studio had been. A 4-poster bed with white linens, windows overlooking gardens and forest beyond. An ensuite bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. "Rest," Lucia said. "I'll bring you fresh clothes. You're safe here, child. Whatever happens next, you're safe." She left, closing the door softly behind her. I stood in the center of the room, suddenly overwhelmed. This morning I'd been in my penthouse, confronting my cheating husband. Now I was in a stranger's mansion, hidden away like some fairy tale princess. Except this wasn't a fairy tale. Dante wasn't a prince. And I was far too old to believe in happy endings. I moved to the window, looking out at grounds that stretched into woods. Somewhere in the distance, I could see the iron gates we'd driven through. Between me and freedom. Or between me and danger. I couldn't tell which. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, seeing a new message from Marcus. "Where are you? We need to talk. Don't be stupid about this. Don't be stupid." As if leaving a man who'd cheated on me and demanded I abort our baby was stupid. As if staying would have been the smart choice. I deleted the message. Then I turned off the phone completely and set it on the dresser. The bed called to me. Soft, safe. I kicked off my sneakers and crawled under the covers fully dressed, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. The adrenaline was crashing, leaving me hollow and shaking. I must have slept, because the next thing I knew, the light through the windows had changed. Late afternoon sun, gold and gentle. And there was a presence in the room. Dante sat in a chair by the window, so still I might have missed him if not for the intensity of his gaze. He'd changed from last night. No suit, just dark jeans and a black Henley that showed off the breadth of his shoulders. Somehow he looked more dangerous this way. More real. "You're awake," he said quietly. I sat up, pushing hair from my face, suddenly conscious of how I must look. "How long have you been there? An hour? Maybe more." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, those dark eyes never leaving my face. "Lucia said you wouldn't eat unless she watched. That you tried to call your husband back." "I didn't call him." "Good." The word was soft but final. "He doesn't deserve to know where you are." I pulled the blanket tighter around myself. "I don't understand why you're doing this. Why you care." Dante was quiet for a long moment, studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Finally he stood, moving to the window, his back to me. 5 years ago, I was engaged. His voice was different now, rougher. Her name was Sophia. She was everything. Light and laughter in a world that didn't have much of either. He paused. Her family didn't approve. I was the wrong kind of man, from the wrong kind of world, but she didn't care.